Hello watch enthusiasts. Now today I have a review of a watch which I've been looking forward to reviewing for a few weeks now, and which is now available as a pre-order. And this is a version of the Undone Urban, but this version is called the Mystique. And this is a model which is something I've been looking forward to because it's a model which features the same excellent value package as the Urban, with its 316L stainless steel case, reasonable sizes, and its very functional hybrid mechanical Seiko movement, which is something I'll talk about later on in the video. But this watch approaches what they call democratizing the gradient style of dial. And these are Fumée dials, and this is a style of dial which is used a lot by H. Moser, as well as Piaget, and is commonly seen as a very expensive and time-consuming way of producing a dial with a wonderful gradient of colour. And here they've produced an affordable timepiece with this, and thus are trying to make a watch, and indeed a general approach to the brand, which offers much better value than other brands in terms of the build quality of the watches. However, before I begin the video, I would like to encourage you all to join the Watch Guys, which is my group on Snups, the social media platform sharing pictures of your collections and interests, and where you can ask me or indeed other enthusiasts any questions or queries, and where I'll do my utmost to reply to any comments or questions personally. And I would also like to announce that from now on I will be featuring a picture or interesting comment from the group on the start of each video to provide my comments. And so today I thought that no picture would do better than the picture by Sands of Time of his wonderful Orient Pro Saturation Diver, which really is a fantastic watch and a great picture to do it justice. So I'd encourage you to follow the link down below and join the Watch Guys to be able to enjoy all of these extra features. And just one word before I start the video, and that is to state that I really am not being paid for this video in any way, shape or form, and I'm really only producing this video because I believe in the product and I think it is a genuinely high quality piece, which is worth sharing with you. And I say this because often it's suspected that a lot of favourable reviews are in fact paid for, when in truth I don't allow any of my videos to be paid for in terms of product reviews, for the simple reason that I feel this would compromise my integrity, and so affect the quality of the review, and indeed the fact that I can provide my true insight into what these watches are like. And so as a result, I would like to confirm this review isn't paid for, and that I really am producing this because I believe in the product and think it's worthwhile showing this to you other enthusiasts and consumers. And so this new watch from Undone, the Mystique, is presented in a very similar box to their usual pieces, but it's in a darker grey, which I think suits this watch much better as a more formal and more serious timepiece. Additionally, this is a nice carrying case if you want to travel with the watch, and will allow you to travel with an extra strap as well. And it pops open simply like so to present the timepiece itself. And if I remove this, we can take a closer look at this rather marvellous looking and very, very good value timepiece. And I've been wearing this watch for a few days now to really get a feel for the way it works and the way it feels on the wrist. And it's worth noting they have changed the case since their earlier models. And the dimensions of this watch are as follows. So 40mm in diameter, 52 from lug to lug, though there's a certain proviso there, so I will mention that later on in the video. And 13mm thick, including that wonderful domed mineral crystal, which really is a beautiful piece and I think works extremely well with the dial itself, which is of course the primary talking part of this timepiece. And so here we see the watch itself with its polished surfaces to the case with these wonderful polished bevels, and this stepped bezel which works extremely well to lift a cuff up over the watch when you're wearing it formally. And it's worth noting, of course, that this is a formal sports watch, because it's a piece which is presented like a dress watch but does have a chronograph function, which is useful for a regular user of this timepiece. And before I talk about the dial in detail, because that really is the most wonderful part of this watch and is a piece of this timepiece which I think really does make the watch. And before I talk about that, the case is, as I've said, 40mm by 52mm, which is slightly different from previous cases from Undone, because I in fact reviewed and was very impressed by their previous watch, the Urban. And that featured an at first similar case in terms of appearances, but one which, upon consideration, does actually present quite differently. Because that model which I have here in this customized arm on the watch guy model features a slightly shorter lug-to-lug distance, as you can see if they're put above each other, like so, and also significantly shorter and flatter lugs. And this means that the new watch actually wears much better on a smaller wrist, which is surprisingly counterintuitive when you bear in mind the fact that smaller wrists would normally prefer a shorter lug-to-lug distance. But as a result of the fact that these watches have such a distinct drop down to the lugs, this actually sits rather beautifully on a smaller wrist, and certainly wears well as a dress watch with cuffs slipping over this 13mm high case, of which about 2mm is in fact the crystal and the bezel, which means that this stepping around the edge really does help with a cuff. And of course, this is beautifully polished around this edge, which I think leads the eye up onto that K1 crystal, which, as far as critiques for this watch would go, I would say I would appreciate a sapphire crystal on this watch, for the simple reason that the durability of these really do warrant their extra price. However, I can understand that the price of the watch would be significantly more as a result of producing such a heavily domed sapphire, and so I can certainly understand the choice to go for a K1, bearing in mind the fact that Undone takes such pride in their manufacturing, which is something I'm very interested to talk about later on in the video, because this really is an important feature of this watch. And the sides of the case are brushed, as you can see, which I think accent the polished sections and help the watch to appear more complex, which is often a problem with watches at this price range. And in terms of functionality, we see the Seiko VK61 in this watch, which is a movement which I've become very fond of, and for its durability, for its accuracy, and also really for its elegance of function, because this is a very accurate quartz movement with the conventional battery. However, the fact that this watch is geared through a mechanical setup to allow the chronograph to flow in the way it does is really quite brilliant. And so when I press the top pusher, which by the way is very much a mechanical click because it runs through a mechanical drivetrain at the top, you get this very even sweep and flow of that second hand, which is far more characteristic of a mechanical watch. And this does contrast the running seconds at 6 o'clock, but you get a full hour's chronograph at 12 o'clock, which is remarkably legible, bearing in mind the fact that this watch has no graduations around the edge of the dial, and also doesn't have any numerals whatsoever. But certainly the dial is beautifully executed in terms of fixtures, because we have these very, very attractive hands, which are beveled, as you may be able to see, with a bevel down the centre and this leaf shape, which couldn't work better really with this design, because it contrasts the sharp edges of the watch with its pronounced bevels very, very well. And of course, one added benefit of the Seiko VK61 is the fact that it has an instant reset, which can be done by pressing the bottom pusher. And this means you get a really fantastic click back to the 0 point, which you wouldn't normally see with a quartz chronograph, which would normally have to move the entirety of the distance around the dial. And this means you can take measurements more quickly and really work with this in a more fluid way, which wouldn't be the case with a quartz movement, which is really brilliant to see them including this in this watch. And of course, the VK movement is a movement which is again easily serviceable and can be taken care of, which is a brilliant aspect and something which often people are concerned about when buying a watch. And this really should set your mind at ease, because these movements are good value, well made, and indeed very reliable. And the dial of the watch is of course very, very well finished with these wonderful indices placed about it, which capture the light just as those wonderful styles of leaf hands with those bevels on them do, which provide an aesthetic which is strangely simple, but nonetheless retains the delicate nature that the case also shows. And the dial is of course domed with that Fumée style, which can be seen very, very clearly in the light, but of course recedes into near blackness or a midnight blue when the light's off it, which is a wonderful thing to see on a watch dial and does show a complex approach to producing it. And to better show you the style of the dial, I have a separate dial free from a watch to show that to you. And this dial is the red variant. And this dial was sent to me along with the watch and features the rose gold indices. And as you can see, this has the aesthetic which is far closer to what you would see from, for example, H. Moser with their red dials, which they're very famous for. And this now has a domed style of dial build. And these dials are made entirely in-house via a 12-stage process which produces these. And similarly, the fixtures on these dials are all hand applied, and the process is done with a full supervised member of staff working with them, which is something which is often not seen with smaller brands who outsource their watch manufacturing. Whereas here we see a dial and a case along with all the other features which are all produced in-house. The only part of this watch not produced in-house is the movement, which is understandable bearing in mind it's a Seiko unit. And this does again show the fact that they're able to produce these watches at a good price, because producing a Fumée dial like this with its lengthy production process is very time consuming and costly. And due to the fact they're able to sell directly to the consumer and try to produce everything in house without outsourcing, they are able to get this price down, which I think to the consumer is a very useful aspect of these watches. And certainly as a reviewer, it's a pleasure to be able to speak to a brand who really know everything about the production of their dials and their watches. And of course, this dial is designed following those styles seen on a lot of other bicompacts, vertically laid out chronographs, with those sunken subdials at 12 and 6. But these feature a lovely concentric style on the central section, and then a very simple sunbursting on the outer sections, which gives a universal look to these watches across the dial, which I think works very well, especially since these are designed to be dress watches with a chronograph function. Alongside the bare 316L stainless steel model, we'd also see this version with its rose gold finish, and this is available with either a red or a green dial, whilst the version with the stainless steel case is available with either the blue or the grey. And though this case really isn't to my liking, I personally don't like bright gold cases. Certainly this is another option for someone who is interested in having a gold style of case. And certainly for a dress watch like this, I can certainly understand someone wanting something a little bit more exotic in terms of colours. And they have carried the colouring on this watch very well, with the that green dial with those gold accents, which again is available with the red dial as well. And these dials are all domed, but as you can see, you can't quite see the edges on the housed version. Though of course this is still adding to the effect of that domed style, which I think does work very well on the wrist, and certainly doesn't compromise legibility in any way. And these watches are presented on these rather nice straps, which are leather and also do feature, as you can see from the back, quick release pins, which mean that you can remove the strap without a tool, which is very useful if you don't have tools with you or if you're travelling with multiple straps. And of course, the straps do feature buckles which match the case finish, which is something which I think is often neglected with watches, especially at this price range. And these watches come in at $260 each as the pre-order price, and their final order price will be $325, which I think is very impressive, bearing in mind the movement in these watches is often seen in watches seen from, for example, Autodromo for twice as much money, which is a very, very steep increase, bearing in mind that these have more complex dials, and in many ways more complex cases. Additionally, you have the insurance that these watches are made primarily, apart from the movement, in-house, which is a real benefit, and I think is something very appealing for a new consumer who wants something which is better value than, for example, something at a higher price range with a Fumée dial, but still offers functionality and comfort on the wrist. And so as I conclude this video, I would like to offer the final statement that I really am very impressed with this watch. And usually at the end of these videos I have more complaints than in this case, but certainly in this situation, really my only criticism of this watch is the fact that the crystal isn't sapphire. Apart from that, I feel there aren't really any other watches on the market which can compete with this as far as a chronograph for this price goes. And especially in terms of the reliability, because with this watch you get the added benefit of the accuracy and reliability of a quartz movement. Whereas a mechanical movement with a style of chronograph at this price range, such as those Seagull manually wound chronographs, have quite a bad reputation in terms of accuracy, and certainly having owned one of those, I can say that it was both inaccurate and also I had several problems having to have it sent back to the manufacturer 3 times within 2 months of owning it, which is something which I really think is problematic for an owner who wants to wear a watch every day. And so as a result, I think it's very difficult to argue with the value of this watch from a brand which isn't shady about its origins, and the fact this is a project which is entirely made in-house, apart from that movement, which is something which is often neglected to be informed about by a lot of brands. And I appreciate the honesty about the fact that they're trying to make these high quality watches at a reasonable price without a large markup, which is often a sign of a brand trying to produce a watch which really is high quality for a consumer, and I have the utmost respect for them for doing so. So please do leave your comments down below as to what you think of this watch, and what you think of the idea of Fumée dials as a whole, because they really are wonderful to behold, and great to have on the wrist. So please do like, share, and subscribe to help the channel, and to be able to enjoy more content here in future. So thank you very much for watching. Sam on the Watch Guy, over and out.